Hey guys, this is me, Courtney from Willow's Bloom, and today we're going to be doing an advice kind of style video based off of the recent eclipse. And I just did a video on that, so make sure you go ahead and check that out for your forecast for your sign. But I'm joined here with my business, life, emotion, intuitive coach, KT, and she's going to help guide us through some practices for this specific eclipse. So, KT, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, first of all, thank you so much for having me on Willow's Bloom. I am beyond excited to meet your subscribers and viewers and so that they can get to know me a little bit too. I am an ecopsychologist and transformational coach. So my purpose is to reconnect people back to themselves, each other, and the natural world. And have had such a pleasure coaching you and taking you through that journey. So I think this will be really interesting for your viewers.
Yeah, and if you guys like her work today, then she will be linked down below. I highly recommend working with her, obviously, because I am. I've already been having a lot of breakthroughs. And so I think her work will speak for itself, though. So you'll see throughout today. So essentially, one of the biggest things that this eclipse is bringing is maybe some change in a way that is going to meet resistance with the old. So, change that is maybe not asked for, or change that we're uncomfortable with doing, that requires a lot of our wisdom, that kind of flares up our ego and our attachment to the way that we used to do things, especially in relationships and money and the way that we think about things. So, I'm just curious, KT, how do you help people move through change when there's a lot of that internal resistance in the way?
Yeah, I think I'm feeling that change a lot right now as well. So I can definitely speak from personal experience that, having a framework for understanding change in the first place is really helpful for our psyche. So
Mhm.
how I like to look at it is through the lens of um, kind of like an indigenous practice of threshold phase. So there's this rite of passage kind of concept in indigenous culture that has a beginning, middle, and end. And that's like any huge transformation in our life is kind of within this framework of you have this severance phase where you're cut off from something old. And
Mhm.
so there's been an old identity formed around that. And then you are severed in some way, whether it's a breakup or leaving a job or getting laid off or whatever it might be. And then there's this threshold phase before you know where you're going,
Mhm.
who you're gonna be with, what you're gonna be doing, and that's the reintegration phase. So this eclipse is kind of like throwing us into this threshold phase, and it's inherently unstabilizing. And
Mhm.
it creates a lot of inner chaos and turbulence, and it could be outer chaos as well and turbulence. So just knowing that it's a cycle of a rite of passage or a growth spurt or some kind of transformation is really helpful. So, and it's not gonna last forever, and that's the great part, right?
Thank God.
Yeah. So knowing that we're in this threshold phase, it's really important to resource ourselves. So having a bag of tools, so to speak, of things that we can pull out when we need them, when we're starting to feel triggered or overwhelmed or stressed and off balance. So maybe like this unknown feeling of this phase is causing people to feel kind of like anxiety more than usual, right? So, what is a resource we can pull out of our toolkit to ground ourselves and come back into balance? And I like to use conscious breathing, mindfulness meditation, and nature. So, depending on my mood, and it can be any tool that works for you, but depending on my mood and my situation, maybe I'll just like right now we can just close our eyes and take a breath, like a deep breath in and then release it out. And then just noticing your feet on the ground, your connection to the earth, and maybe just engage your sense of touch. Feel like your clothing or the seat that you're sitting on, and just noticing those sensations. They can help pull us back into our bodies. And then just taking one last deep breath in. And on the exhale, gently blinking the eyes open. And you can just see how it kind of like shifts our homeostasis back into balance, right? So that's one way of resourcing. And sometimes you need to just go move your body and get into nature. I love jumping in the ocean or a hot spring if you're in Colorado, or a jacuzzi or whatever you have access to, but embodying yourself and activating the senses in some way. So that really helps. And then the third thing that I'm sure we'll explore a lot more of is, how do you actually process what's happening emotionally? So whatever change occurred is likely to be causing a lot of internal turmoil, which might look like activating the egoic voice inside of our heads, which is generally negative and can cause us more stress. And how do we consciously shift that voice back into the voice of our soul or our highest self and gain wisdom and insight on whatever change is going on? So I'll let you kind of take it from there, and wherever you want to go with that, we can go.
Yeah, I think that the biggest part of this is the Saturnian element. So this eclipse is squaring Saturn, and Saturn and Uranus have been in the square for like the last year and a half. And basically what that indicates is I need to evolve and progress, but there's something that is tradition, or that is habit, or that is part of my old self that is constantly resisting this change. And so this has been, again, going on for a year and a half for everyone in the collective. We've been trying to, again, progress, evolve, make radical change in our lives, move towards the things that excite us, that make us feel free, that make us feel more authentic. And then this other part of, well, I still have to go to work and do this job every day because I have to pay my bills, or my family has always processed emotions like this. How am I going to just stop processing emotions like them after 10 years of doing it this way? It's like there's realistic limits of life, as well as our limits of just habits and things that have always been there. And so we are having this year and a half long story, which has kind of started to fade out, be activated in a really big way, especially around relationships, our value systems, how we value ourselves, where we spend our money, and kind of what we value in others, like what we're looking for in a partnership or what we're willing to put up with versus not. All those really core things are being activated right now. And so I feel like in terms of the ego or the egoic mind, it's going to go back to all of the reasons why I can't, all of the reasons why there's a no, why there's a restriction. And some of them are real. Some of them are very tangible and necessary. And like, you can't just look past it and think past it. And so it can be kind of hard because we're meant to use this friction to still progress and to do something about it. But there are certain limits in which we might have to operate within. So I'm just kind of curious how you would navigate that with your clients.
Yeah, so this is so normal in any kind of change. It creates discomfort in our bodies, right? So actually, like physiologically, our bodies develop receptors for certain chemicals and hormones that it's used to. So if we're kind of in a relationship and we're used to receiving a certain level of dopamine and oxytocin and serotonin from this relationship, and suddenly it's gone, oh, we want it back. Or, we get addicted to kind of a certain way of being. And when we want to, optimize our life or level up in some way, it's the unknown for the body. So the body's addicted, so to speak, to these old chemicals that were being released from these old ways of being. And it's naturally going to fight you when you start changing, when you start moving in a new direction. And that's what we've worked on together, which is like, okay, what's the old train track? What's the old, synaptic connections that are creating that old version of you? And what's the new one? And then how do you realize what's happening when the body is pulling you back to the old one? How do you snap out of that process and nip it in the butt and shift again towards building that new train track? So in terms of breaking old patterns that might be getting in the way, it's really important to first become aware of what that pattern is so that you can kind of catch yourself when you're enacting it, and then have something new you want to replace it with. So let's say, for example, you really have this strong inner voice, this inner critic that is saying you aren't qualified to do such and such, and it actually isn't relevant in your life. Like you are definitely qualified, but it's just your reoccurring pattern, right? And you're wanting to create something that you need to own your voice and own your talent in, but it's pulling you back, and you used to listen to it a lot, but now you're practicing this new way of being, which is like, I am fully qualified for this. And I am a gift. I'm a force. I can add value. And I'm going to do this, this, and this to show and prove that to myself. And so when that old train track kicks in, it's usually because it's uncomfortable. And you're in a situation where you're doing something new. You're putting your foot forward on this new train track. And it's like, I've never been here before. These are new feelings. I want to go back to comfort, and comfort isn't necessarily good. So, and that's how we can start to kind of outwit the process. So if you see, okay, I'm going down that track, I know it's not a good track, I know it's not true, you can outwit it right away. And you can be like, what's something else I could do? If I'm not listening to this voice, what voice am I going to listen to? And so that's what I like to call the highest self. And I like to think of, there's like this part of us that kind of lives up here, and it's this overseeing, all wise, all knowing, all loving, like non-judgmental being. That is who we really are. And it's connected to our true power and our true capabilities. So I like to go take a pause and close my eyes and just be like, okay, ego, I hear you. I hear the old pattern. I don't believe that anymore. I know my true power. So I'm going to shift into listening to the highest self. And I'll just ask, I'll be like, highest self, like, what do you think about this situation? What do you think about what I want to do? And your highest self will have the most encouraging, empowering, and beautiful answer for you. And the reason you know it's the highest self is because it always feels good hearing it. So, and it's okay if you don't hear it at first. It can take practice to make that connection. And sometimes we just hear silence, and silence is so much better than the ego. So go with it. And so in that process, you can kind of say, you'll get that support you need, that emotional and energetic fulfillment from that process of shifting out of the old train track to the new, that will allow you to take that next step and build that next part of the train track.
Yes, I love this. So there are a few things that I want to say. So specifically talking about like two different things. One being things that might get taken away from you unwillingly. So let's say you do want to be in that relationship, but then they break up with you, or you do want to have that job and then it's not right. And so they end it. Um, so there's that circumstance that can sometimes happen with Saturn where things come to an end, especially with Uranus, that's abrupt. And again, like unsolicited, unwanted in some ways. So that's one aspect. And then the other aspect is like actual constraints that you're trying to free yourself from, but that are still present. So like I said, like if you're trying to start a business, but you still need to make money on the side, and it's like you're trying to navigate these things. Um, and I feel like both of these situations are very Saturnian in nature, and both of them require just an acceptance. And I feel like that's something that in our work together has really come to light a lot is, you know, an acceptance of the process, an acceptance of like how things are. Cause I feel like a lot of the discomfort that I create in my body and in my life and in my mind and emotions is from resisting things so
Mhm.
much. And then after resisting it, like beating myself up for not being perfect or things not already being where I want them to be. And so is there anything you wanted to say about that?
Definitely. So resistance is kind of like equivalent to the stress response, equivalent to getting in your own way, blocking yourself. And it's also important to kind of step back and realize you have control over yourself and your life and your choices, but everyone else has their own volition to do so as well. And the resistance is usually attachment. It's usually this, I need you to survive. I need you to be okay. And it's this ability to kind of realize, actually, I'm good. Like, I would prefer to be in this situation in terms of the first part of your question, which is, how do we deal with things that are taken away from us that we don't want to have happen? It's first realizing, like, I've got me. Like, I have self-love. I have the ability to be my own best friend. I have the ability to self-soothe. And so it's that just coming back into stabilization process, which is step one, because we can't do any work if we're spiraling out and we're stressed. So it's like, okay, how do I self-soothe? How do I ground? How do I get centered? And it's usually this process of like kind of shelving whatever the issue is. And I like to call it like compartmentalizing. So you can envision that issue, that stressful issue, like going into a box, and then you're just like putting it on your shelf and you're like, I'll get to you later. I'm going to get to me first. And so you're number one. And I would just, sit with myself like in a safe space, right time, right place, and have it be a safe space where you feel okay going inwards and where you won't be disturbed. And then I would just kind of sit with my emotions and allow whatever wants to come up. Like, what is, like, be curious. What's the resistance about? What's the attachment about? This is hard. I can be with this. Right. So it's this ability to kind of nurture and allow our own emotions and not fight them, and know that they'll move through us if we give them that attention. So it's attunement. So what that might look like is, okay, I was just broken up with and I didn't want the breakup and I am so upset, I'm so angry, I feel like the world's against me. Okay, I'm not gonna should on myself and say I should feel differently than that. I'm going to allow it. I'm going to sit with it, close my eyes, and I'll probably put my hand on my heart or wherever it feels nurturing for me and just say, I've got you. We'll get through this. It's time to feel what you feel. I'm hearing you. I'm listening. How does it feel? I feel abandoned. I feel betrayed. I feel unlovable. Whatever those things are that comes up, just allowing it through is the first step. And then being able to be like, okay, once that kind of moves through and you can come back with some breath or those stabilizing exercises we just went through, like grounding. Okay, what is really going on here? What happened? What can I learn from this? And so it's this learning process from, okay, one might be, I'm feeling really strong attachment. Is there something I'm not giving myself in my life that is making this harder than it needs to be? And most of the time, that's the case. Like, that's where codependency kind of comes into play, and we can start to rely on our partner for something to give to us that we're not giving ourselves when we can be giving that to ourselves. And so it's that empowerment piece of like, okay, whatever you're missing from this relationship, I'm going to give to you. Like, do you need affection? Do you need companionship? okay, like what are some actionable steps I can take on that? One is like this, like literally waking up in the morning. If you miss that person hugging you, just like, good morning. Like, I've got you, you know? And it actually works. It feels so comforting. And then, like, if you used to dance in the kitchen together, making coffee in the morning, like, put on the music and dance with yourself, even if it feels really weird. Just feel like, okay, I really don't feel like dancing right now, but we're just gonna do this. And it's those acts of self-love where it's showing yourself like you're going to be okay, we're going to be resilient, we're going to bounce back from this. So that leads me to my last point with this, which is resiliency is recovery. So like when we experience adversity and we come back to baseline, that's like us bouncing back and coming into our health once again. And it's a process where we gain wisdom, we gain skills, and we come back differently than before. Otherwise, why did we go through that? Right? It's meant to teach us something. So it's that learning process and then integrating it back into your life. So in terms of too, like that part of not wanting it to happen, there's a grief process. There's like you have to allow yourself to feel that loss. And that's like the feeling the emotions part. And then, moving into the learning the lessons and then integrating the lessons and then knowing you have yourself. And sometimes, yeah, it's part of life. Like it doesn't go the way we wanted it to go, but then zooming out and seeing spiritually and with law of attraction and all these things, like it just wasn't a match at that point. And that is a very, very helpful perspective because you see that what's meant for you will be a vibrational match to you and can't miss you. And sometimes people evolve in different directions and then they're no longer vibrating on the same wavelength. And then it's this attachment that keeps you together longer than you probably should have been. And then, the pulling apart hurts more when you're that attached, right? And so if this perspective kind of helps us see like, oh, if we were a match, we'd still be together. And there's something to learn here.
It's funny that you say the word wisdom because that's one of the cards I pulled today.
Ooh.
And so I feel like, I mean, it's funny because that's what Saturn does is it's this planet that has a very kind of karmic responsibility in our lives where we struggle through things, we age, we develop into the elder as a result of this maturation process and this resiliency that we, go through and learn from. And so I think that is what Saturn does is it gives us this kind of innate wisdom. And I think that is with this eclipse in particular, since it's a square, it's like kind of wisdom that you might not, yeah, just like a hard one wisdom. And that's usually what I think of with Saturn anyway. It's like something that is just, it's not just gifted to you. It's not easy. It's like you have to really kind of push through something or push past something to get to the other side. And so I think that is a big part of what this eclipse is going to bring. And then did you want to speak into kind of like the natural constraints or restraints or restrictions that we have, and how to navigate stepping into the new life while still having to deal with just realistic things in your current life?
So are you saying that in terms of what you're talking about before with wanting something, but maybe it's not happening or maybe there's some obstacle? Or being
That, yeah, that and like realistic life limits. So having a kid, but wanting to, and having a job, but wanting to work on a business and wanting to be an entrepreneur and feeling like you can't just quit your business because you have a kid and you have time responsibilities and just realistic life limits that make us kind of have a foot in each version of ourselves.
Yeah, so there's a few things I would say. One is you can reframe your life situation to work for you and be in alignment with you. And so what that might look like is, okay, if you, yes, have a business idea, but your life right now is so full that you have very little time, if any, to work on the business, you can start to look at all the things that you do have, and you can ask yourself, how is this in alignment with my true soul path and what I really want? And sometimes that's all it takes for us just to be okay with where we're at, which is like, I love having a family, and I receive so much joy from that part of my life that's really needing a lot of my time and attention right now. And one day, I'll have more time and can get to it then, but like maybe there's small solutions to chip away at an idea where that would be my next point, is instead of reframing, you can also be creative with your time and energy, which is like, okay, here's my life, here's my pie chart, here's all my time, here's all my energy, here's all my resources. What can I move around and create some space and time to dedicate to this thing? Because we can't do everything, but sometimes we can, pull a little bit of time out of this pie section and put more of it into here. And maybe that's like, taking that promotion to earn a bit of extra money to pay for a nanny who can free up your time 1 or 2 days of the week. And it's that, okay, let's be creative, but let's be solution oriented process that flips on the prefrontal cortex. But this is the part of us that's like most recently evolved, and it's where our creativity, our clarity, our rationality, our reason, all of that lives. And then if we're in stress, it turns off and it puts us in our reptilian brain, which is the oldest part of our brain. And then we become reactive and emotional, and we can't really see a way out. And so it's this process of like, okay, like shifting into a solution based, I am an abundant being, I am creative, I am powerful. There's always a solution. There's always a way. How can I get creative with my time, my energy, my resources? And what would that look like? And then my third suggestion would be to utilize visualization and law of attraction principles. So there is this invisible force of the universe that animates everything, including you and me, including making trees grow and elephants and the cycles of the weather and all these things it's incredible and miraculous. And it's this intelligent force that you can channel through yourself because you are a part of it. And it has this ability to attract like components, cooperative components, to create whatever it is you're visualizing and wanting. So it works on frequency. And that's what I meant by like, when you're not a match with someone, you can't match up. It's like, if you're not a vibrational match to your desire, it can't find you. Like the solutions can't find you. The cooperative components can't find you. But when you are, you don't need to know the how. You can attract the how. And it's like this process of staying open and receptive and allowing that energy to work for you. So we could do a little visualization practice if you'd like. Yeah. Okay. So I would say everyone just close your eyes, find your seat, and just lift the crown of your head up tall, elongating your spine. And let's take one long, deep breath in and out. And just release, let that breath return to its natural rhythm. And allow all your thoughts just to start settling down like the snow in a snow globe. And I want you to just place your inward gaze at the point between your eyebrows, your third eye, the seat of intuition and visualization. I want you to think of something you really want in your life, but it feels like you don't have enough time for it or you don't have enough energy, but it's something you're really, really wanting to put your energy towards. And I just want you to imagine what it would feel like to have that in your life already right now. No limits, no time constraints, just what would it feel like to have the presence of this thing in your life right now? And keep feeling into that and sense the vibrational quality of the emotions you're experiencing while imagining having that particular thing. And keeping your eyes closed and staying connected to that process. What's happening on an energetic level is that you are emanating a certain frequency or wavelength pattern in your energetic vibration that is being sent out. And energy has a function of like attracts like. So it's this harmonizing characteristic of the universe, like that it wants to cooperate, it wants to flow in harmony with each other. So like frequencies are out there kind of looking for their match. And so when you are vibrating, having this thing that you really, really want, the universe is picking it up like a radio signal. And when you believe you're worthy, when you trust that it can happen, and you don't know the how, but you trust there's a way, you allow those like frequencies to find you. And how that might look is synchronicities, things popping up in your life unexpectedly, things, solutions working out for you. So let's just take a collective deep breath in, exhale out, and just gently blinking your eyes open. So that's a tool that, if you wanted to explore, you could book a session with me or look more into law of attraction. But that is a tool that all of us have access to. You just need to learn about it, that can help bring in opportunities that you might not be able to do yourself. So it's using the energy that creates worlds to help bring in solutions for the things that you're wanting in ways that you can't think of.
Yeah. And wherever you experience this previous eclipse, the solar eclipse in Scorpio, I think that is actually an area of life where you will start to find those solutions. So maybe it's through a friend, maybe it's through a random thing online, maybe you were talking to somebody or you, I don't know, meditated and something came to you. There's something that was sort of planted at that Scorpio eclipse. And what I've noticed for many of us is it's usually some kind of long-term goal or something delayed. And so we will have this kind of longer process of needing to continue to attune ourselves to attract the other little pieces to make it all work in the end. And it can feel sometimes disheartening when it's a longer ways away, which is why I think it is so helpful to work with someone like KT, because there are the troughs and the peaks of that kind of experience where you're feeling really aligned and attuned and it's great. And then there are the troughs where it feels like it's harder to maintain your focus and your energy. And that's something that KT has really helped me with, is continuing to redirect and especially connect with my why. And she's connected, or she created a meditation for me that I've been doing every morning that brings me back to that feeling of what I want to put out in the world, what I want to experience, what I want to do for others. And it's just really like lit the fire within me. Um, and then I also wanted to mention that I pulled this hawk card as as another card, and to explain kind of what we might experience during this eclipse. And this says, watchful, all-seeing messenger of divinity. The hawk has the ability to see every detail as well as a bigger picture. Which I feel like kind of relates to what I was saying. It's like we see this bigger picture goal, and then I don't think all the details are fully flushed out yet, but we're starting to pick them up. And this eclipse right now that we're recording this video for, it might show us maybe what wasn't working in order to push us further down the path of what will work to collect more of those details and those little breadcrumbs. When this card appears, fate has its eyes on you and the winds are shifting. It is said that the hawk carries news upon its wings and is sent from divinity itself to deliver it. The message should not be taken lightly, though it may seem small or insignificant. It will eventually redirect your course. And again, I feel like it's a lot of those synchronicities and little things that we pick up a lot along the way that you maybe just had a thought about, or you just, again, heard someone talking about it, and then it unfolds into this massive new chapter into your life, in your life. Um, so yeah,
Mhm.
I feel like that's something to kind of put our little antennas up for, is listening out for some of those synchronicities that are coming your way right now. And I feel like that was that was really helpful. Is there any other thing that you feel called to share before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think one kind of mantra to keep yourself in the present moment, moving forward and allowing and not being in resistance is what wants to happen. What wants to happen? Like there's this animating force moving through us that's trying to guide us, and it will if you tune into it. And it's just what wants to happen right now. And you'll kind of just get an answer or an intuitive hit and follow it and see what happens.
And sometimes it's going to take us on these twisty little roads, and we're not even sure why we're doing that thing that we're doing. And then it all kind of merges together later, which is something that I recently experienced. With KT's meditation, I started seeing all these different facets of my life and past research and interests kind of come together. Um, so it's about, I think, definitely trusting the process. So thank you so much. Where can people contact you or work with you? What should we know about your work, basically?
Yeah, you can definitely find me on my website. It's KT, just two letters, crier.com. And also my Instagram, which is KT Crier. And feel free to reach out, message me, email me, and we can just talk, book a free consultation. Or yeah, I have a retreat coming up in Los Angeles on Catalina Island. So you can look into that too.
And what do you offer besides the retreat?
So I offer one-on-one coaching. I offer 4 hours with me in the wilderness coaching as well. And I also offer, yeah, these retreats, which are really deep nature immersions. And it's a way to kind of unplug from our crazy technological lives and really recenter, diving back into ourselves, aligning ourselves. And as an eco-psychologist, I have a lot of fun nature connection activities to kind of reconnect you with the natural world, which is where we're from. It's where we evolved, and it's where we're healthiest and we thrive the most. So it's kind of this remembrance of, oh yeah, I'm an earthling. I belong here.
I love that. That might be for all the Aquarius individuals. And what do people come to coaching with you for? What do people come to coaching for with you?
Yeah. So really, I think it all boils down to empowering them to be able to coach themselves through whatever it is
Mhm.
eventually. And so I teach a system that works for pretty much every issue. But a lot of the things people have come for are things like being stuck in a career they don't like, being exhausted from it, not having enough energy to do anything else at the end of the day, and feeling really trapped. I was able to help them find what it is they really love to do and get clear on that, attract an amazing opportunity into their life, which was a job as a writer and getting paid 3 times as much, working half the amount of time, and it was remote so they can travel and live on a sailboat, which was their dream. So that's just an example of how you can take a problem and you can use law of attraction, mindfulness, meditation, and visualization, and then also working on those inner blocks or limiting beliefs. And sometimes it's trauma as well. So I am a trauma informed coach and can, know when you need more therapy, like as an approach, or coaching, and I can work somatically with people on releasing some of those old patterns that may have stemmed from trauma. So it's really just all about taking whatever it is you're wanting in life and figuring out why you're not getting it,
Mhm.
and I teach you the tools to shift around your energy, your focus, your belief systems, clean you out from the inside, get your energy really bright and shiny so that you attract and you also do what needs to be done in order to create that reality for yourself.
Woo! Thank you so much. Again, I highly recommend KT. Check her out in the links below and definitely go watch the video if you haven't on this eclipse. And I hope you guys have a good one. Bye.